everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Liana. Today I wanted to do a video talking about cruelty-free beauty. And now this isn't going to be about how to go cruelty-free or anything like that. This is more going to be information about what cruelty-free beauty actually means as far as I'm concerned, and really there are no true definitions of the term legally. My friends here on YouTube, Raw Paint and Alex the Alchemist, have both covered this subject in really great videos, so I am going to link their videos down below. I'm also going to have a bunch of different resources and various links because this is a very complicated subject. There's a lot to it that maybe not a lot of people are aware of. Yeah, so this is not a video about me preaching to you to go cruelty-free. That's not at all it. I do realize that the cruelty-free beauty community can be a little off-putting. I've encountered this. I myself went cruelty-free at the very beginning of 2017, and I have come across people who belittle you if you aren't as cruelty-free as they are. They are very militant. It's akin to some vegans saying that, well, you're this, but you're not as good as this. You know, there are levels to cruelty-free, just as there are levels to veganism, you know? And, well, if you aren't cruelty-free at all, they'll come to you and be like, well, why aren't you cruelty-free? And so I get that, and I'm never, ever pushing cruelty-free on anyone. No, this is facts. And if I'm wrong about anything in this video, please do let me know. I would like to be corrected. So I do have a bunch of things that I have written down, so I am going to be looking down throughout the video. Please don't let that distract you. So to have a better understanding of what cruelty-free means, we have to start off with what it's defined as right now. And like I said, it's not very well defined. But what cruelty-free is that it's not testing on animals. That's all. That's all there is to it. That's not all there is to it. So it simply means that a product has not been tested on animals. So in order to be considered a cruelty-free company, this means that not only has the finished product not been tested on animals, but neither have the ingredients anywhere in the manufacturing process. One way that this has been interpreted is that businesses have verified that neither they nor their ingredient suppliers conduct, commission, or pay for any tests on animals for their ingredients, formulations, or finished products anywhere in the world, and won't do so in the future. So the brand in question may still have a parent company that tests on animals and retain their cruelty-free status. Many companies do this. A prime example would be a company such as NYX. NYX is owned by L'Oreal. A lot of companies are owned by L'Oreal, but while L'Oreal is not considered cruelty-free, NYX is. This is one of those things where you have to consider how comfortable are you with the fact that some of those profits are going to L'Oreal. Like I said, there are different levels to being cruelty-free. Not every cruelty-free company gets certified cruelty-free. Now, there are a few different ways to get certified. Leaping Bunny is probably the most well-known, well-recognized, and trusted ways of being certified. But there are a lot of companies that don't go through this process because it's very long and it is very arduous. PETA is another certification program, but it's more lax. People have suggested that as long as you pay PETA for certification, they will certify you. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. However, they did recently put Dove on their cruelty-free list. And well, I'll get to that a little bit later. they do still sell in China, but like I said, I'll get to that a little later. If a company cannot verify that all of their sources, ingredients are farmed from cruelty-free manufacturers, then this kind of becomes a gray area. Certain websites like Logical Harmony, which again, this is probably the most trusted and reliable website in the cruelty-free community. And the owner, Tashina Combs, has her own YouTube channel. She has what's known as a gray area list, and it's full of brands that, for one reason or another, cannot be considered cruelty-free, but they're also not on the non-cruelty-free list. There are also pending brands, you know, things like that. Things are just a little bit fuzzy. So the company itself may not test their final products on animals, but without verification from their suppliers, animal testing may have occurred at some point. May have. Then we have third-party testing. A company and or its suppliers can commission a third party to conduct testing on their behalf. The company itself does not technically conduct the testing, but they allow it to happen. Every country has different animal testing laws. So, for example, many countries have started banning animal testing entirely. The EU has certain laws, and Canada is going to be passing certain laws into effect that would be very similar to the EU. This doesn't mean that brands like L'Oreal would disappear from store shelves. A lot of people are under this assumption that that's going to happen, that all of these brands that are known to sell in China are just suddenly going to up and disappear. And that's not true. What this means is that, say, if you're in the EU or you're in Canada or California is going to be enacting this bill, the brands cannot test there. That's really all it means. There's no local testing, because a lot of people don't realize there's still testing happening in these places, but the finished product and its ingredients cannot have any animal testing there. They can still sell in China. That it's going to happen. That's all it means, is that you can't test a product there. So if you're in California or the EU or eventually here in Canada, if you buy a Rimmel mascara, the product there is cruelty-free. That doesn't mean the brand is cruelty-free, but the product you're buying is. And so again, it's kind of complicated, and people can definitely get confused by this, understandably. Now, at some point in time, you may have come across the phrase on a company's website that states that they only conduct animal testing where required by law. This usually refers to China, and this is also typically where the third-party testing comes in. Now, how animal testing in China works is a little complicated. All of this is complicated. So how I'm going to explain this is I'm going to actually insert an infographic by Ethical Elephant for you to look at while I try to explain this. No testing required by law consists of domestic Chinese products that are labeled as ordinary cosmetics, such as hair care, skincare, fragrance, and makeup. Products sold in Hong Kong, and products sold and shipped through e-commerce. This means foreign companies can sell in Hong Kong or through online means without losing their cruelty-free status. Where testing is required by law, domestic Chinese products labeled as special use cosmetics such as sunscreen, deodorant, skin whitening creams, etc. Foreign cosmetics brands, even if they are produced in China, will be subject to animal testing if they're sold in mainland China. Again, excludes Hong Kong. A company that makes their products in China but does not sell their products there can still be considered cruelty-free. So a lot of times there is concern that a brand that says made in China on the back of a pallet how can they possibly be cruelty-free? But yeah, as long as they're not selling there, it's fine. There's also two types of testing that occur in China. This was news to me. There's pre-market testing and post-market testing. For the former, the company in question knows when this is happening and agrees to this. The latter is a little bit more confusing. While brands entering the Chinese market are obviously aware of their animal testing laws and know that they're going to be subject to animal testing when they enter the Chinese market, post-market testing can happen at any time, even without the company knowing. The products will already be on store shelves before they're pulled for testing, and post-market testing can happen with every beauty brand sold on Chinese shelves. And as I believe that includes domestic brands. And while it's not a requirement in these cases, it is legal. So kind of think of it as a random drug screening, you know, they want to make sure that everything is the way it should be. So they're pulling a random product off the shelves to ensure that all the other products like that are safe. So Dove, as I mentioned earlier, thinks that they've found a loophole to be cruelty-free. They are only selling certain kinds of products in China that don't require pre-market testing, but they would still require post-market testing, and therefore they can't be considered cruelty-free. And they cheekily said that they were going to have the Chinese government give them a heads up if this would ever happen, if the need should ever arise for post-market testing. Yeah, that's not going to happen. They can't give you a heads up. They're going to take it off the shelves and perform the test right away. I don't think they understand that, or they're trying to lie to you. So yeah, this is something that I didn't know about. I knew about animal testing. I didn't realize there were two different kinds. And therefore that actually makes Nudestix not a cruelty-free company, because they sell in China. And they do this because they built their own factory there and started selling there. And there's like a sort of loophole there because it's technically a domestic company now because it was built there. But yeah, it would still be required for post-market testing. So yeah. While we're on the topic of China, I do want to address a sort of elephant that's in the room, and that is the fact that whenever animal testing laws come up in conversation, and they do whenever cruelty-free beauty is discussed, people get xenophobic and racist. And I don't know if anybody realizes it, but whether the intention is there or not, it happens. Like, I'd kind of just want to maybe like have people take a step back and realize that statements such as every brand should pull out of China, don't blame the companies, blame China, or China hates animals, breeds huge hostility. So the first thing to understand is that China is not the only country that has animal testing. It is, however, the only country that seems to receive this amount of hate from people when animal testing is being discussed. And maybe that is because people don't realize testing is happening elsewhere, but animal testing has been happening for years, and people always direct their hate towards China. Saying that China does not deserve the same things that we do, such as cosmetics, is racist. It's entitled. It's insensitive. You know, there are cruelty-free consumers there as well who are already looking for alternative ways to shop. They're shopping online from websites that ship to China, usually for an exorbitant fee. So we're already asking them to, you know, put themselves in a situation where they're having to pay more, where they're struggling to find brands, kind of like in any other country where they don't have the same access to brands that maybe you do in North America or the UK or, you know, wherever else where popular mainstream brands are a thing. And I'm not saying that there are no mainstream brands in China. They're definitely there. What I'm saying is that a lot of them, let's say all of them, are not cruelty-free, and there is a demand for that.
I forgot to say this in the video, but if we removed every foreign brand from China, it could potentially become extremely difficult for everyone there to buy brands, as they A, may ship for fees that are way too high for some to afford, or B, may not ship to China at all. The counterfeit market is a huge problem in China, so this would potentially cause further safety concerns.
If every brand pulled out of China, we would no longer have a working relationship with them. It would be bad for trade. And you'd no longer have scientists helping them to come up with these alternative testing methods, because that hasn't been their priority so far. In case you don't know, China does have other issues to focus on that maybe you don't have these issues in your country because, you know, you have clean air. China doesn't always have clean air. That's something that maybe is, you know, their focus up here instead of animal testing down here. Now, I'm not saying animals aren't important. They are. But China has a lot going on. So scientists from all over the world are working with China. And if you cut that tie, how likely is it that they're going to want to pursue these alternative testing means? It's not very likely. People like to think that companies like L'Oreal are over there abusing animals for fun. They're not. They're actually one of the leading companies working on like alternative skin cells to test on. They're growing human skin. They're at the forefront of this technology, and they are helping teach this to the Chinese government. And of course, generalizing that all Chinese people hate animals. Like, are you kidding me? That's a horrible thing to say. I already mentioned I'll have several articles linked in the description box, but there's one in particular that you should read if you believe this. It explains the religious beliefs as it pertains to animal welfare in China. It explains Chairman Mao's effect on China's people, and it explains how there was a great famine that affected animal consumption. Moreover, it shows how today there are a great many activist groups in China that are working to affect change. China as a country does have some ways to go in certain areas, but it has made massive strides. And understanding its past is just as imperative to understanding its present. So of course, now that you know what cruelty-free is, we should talk about what cruelty-free isn't. Cruelty-free beauty isn't vegan. So a huge point of contention in the beauty industry is the fact that a lot of cruelty-free companies sell animal hair products, be that mink lashes, cruelty-free mink lashes at that, or animal hair brushes, what have you. And there's no such thing as cruelty-free mink lashes or cruelty-free animal hair brushes. A lot of people would have you believe that these animals are roaming free on a nice big farm, they're having lots of fun, and their hair just magically sheds on the ground, and the nice people go and pick it up to use for the brushes or the lashes. You want to know what happens on animal farms? I'm not going to tell you because it's horrible. But if you really want to know, You should look it up because it's just awful, especially the treatment of minks. Minks are wild animals. They're not meant to be kept in cages, but that's where they're kept. And I mean, when has a company ever let you in to their process of collecting their cruelty-free animal hair? I would love to know, because a lot of these companies claim that it's a cruelty-free process, but they never allow you behind closed doors to show you how they're collecting the hair. And why? Because it's inhumane. If it were a humane process, they would show you. Additionally, there are non-vegan ingredients such as carmine, which is in lots of different things, including blushes, lipsticks, and eyeshadows, and it's made from crushed bugs, which sounds disgusting. And they are coming up with vegan dyes now that have the same pigmentation and blendability. But the idea that crushing bugs is somehow cruelty-free is odd, isn't it? Cruelty-free beauty is not ethical. Many cruelty-free companies use ingredients that are not ethically sourced, such as palm derivatives. Palm oil is a huge waste. It's sucking the life out of our ecosystem because it's running so low and it affects so many different animals. But companies continue to use it in so many different products, skincare, hair care, concealers even, and there's just no point. There are so many alternatives. Worse than that is mica. Now, mica can be ethically sourced, but oftentimes it's not. Mica is typically farmed in India, in areas where people live below the poverty line. And the children there are often forced to seek jobs because their parents need the money. This means roughly 100,000 children, some as young as 5 years of age, are working for as little as 77 cents per day. In very poor conditions, some of them even die. Other products such as eyeshadow, palettes in general are usually the big one here, are made in factories, again, in India, in China, sometimes even in Italy. They're made in factories with very poor working conditions where the employees work for long hours with extremely little pay. And again, some of these people are children. Just like in fast fashion, where people are made to work in sweatshops, the beauty industry uses the same kind of exploitation techniques. And I'm not saying that all beauty products are made this way, far from it. But if it's made in certain countries like the ones I just mentioned, there's a higher chance of that happening. Cruelty-free beauty is not inclusive and it's not accessible. I would argue that yes, there are quite a few cruelty-free brands these days, but how many would fall under everyone's definition of affordable? How many are widely available? And how many cater to every demographic? There's a reason why I can scroll through YouTube or Instagram and see many mid to upper class white people claiming to be cruelty-free influencers. I don't see a lot of people with disabilities like myself claiming to be cruelty-free. I don't see a lot of women of color who are cruelty-free. And there's a reason for that. If the only brands you have near you are Essence and Wet n Wild, they have very limited shade ranges. And then you have on the other end L'Oreal and Maybelline, and you are a woman of color. Which brand are you more likely to buy from for your complexion products? You may be able to find a few other products from those lines, but if you're looking for a foundation, you can't buy from those brands. It's not going to happen. Essence has a huge array of beige. That's typically all they have. Wet n Wild has maybe 15 to 20 shades, but they still don't go that deep. Bronzers, they have no bronzers for women of color. You know, like, it's a matter of what can you buy that will work for your skin tone. If the only hair care in your area that works for your hair type, whether that's 4C hair or very fine thin hair, is $3 or $30, and you can't afford the $30 one, what are you buying? Again, like, it's about accessibility. If you have sensitive skin and you have Cetaphil, or what's the alternative to Cetaphil? I still use Cetaphil because I haven't found an alternative to that that's cruelty-free. Have you? I mean, that's actually one thing that I've found a lot of people with eczema and, you know, different skin conditions talking about, is that there are not a lot of options for people to choose from. And if you have sensitive skin on your face, maybe you're using something like Simple Skincare, again, not cruelty-free. The next step up from that would be to go to Sephora and find something there. I'm lucky enough that I can afford First Aid Beauty, but they don't have every type of skincare that I need. So I'm still using Simple Skincare. So this kind of brings me to my final point. Cruelty-free is a privilege. Not everyone can access it. Not everyone can afford it. Not everyone is catered to. The beauty industry is just one of many that deals in unethical practices and yet deigns to call itself cruelty-free. And, you know, we believe it. You know, like I said at the beginning, this was never a video to shame anyone into going cruelty-free. But I also don't want this to be a video that deters you from going cruelty-free or staying cruelty-free if you are already. This doesn't have to be one of those scenarios where it's all or nothing.
For example, I've seen some people lately with the mindset that there's no sense boycotting brands because there's a chance all of them have done something wrong at some point, so you may as well not even bother. In my opinion, this is not true.
Like, your efforts are not meaningless. If you are buying cruelty-free but not vegan, that's okay. But if you think that you have to buy cruelty-free, vegan, ethically sourced, you know, 100% of all of this to be cruelty-free or nothing, that's not right. You can do it in those levels and still feel like you're making a difference. And again, if you feel like you can't do it at all for whatever reason, then don't force yourself. Like, if you can't afford it, if there aren't brands that work for you, then don't feel bad about that. This is more about having some awareness of what cruelty-free actually means, because there isn't a misinformation out there. And even if you know that some cruelty is still there, know that you are still making some change, good change. And never ever shame anybody else around you for not being in the same place you are. And that's really all I have to say about that. So I hope that this was as informative as I hoped it would be. Please let me know your thoughts down below. I would love to hear them. I post Mondays and Fridays here on this channel in the afternoons Eastern Time, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, guys.